Hello friends, welcome to the fifth part of the best games of Williams tennis series. Until now we have seen 4 interesting games, and if you have not watched those games, then I will suggest you to go to my playlist which is dedicated to the Williams tennis and do watch those games. Okay, coming back to the game which we are going to see, this game is very important because after this game the evaluation of the opening, that is French opening, changed because Williams tennis brought a very new concept in this line. Previously, in French defense, people used to consider that you should keep the center intact and then only you can proceed in a good manner. But William Steinitz had different theories and he always wanted to implement them in the openings. And in this game, he showed a brilliant positional understanding also. Thanks to his opponent, he was able to apply his all the plans very nicely and very clearly. So without further ado, let's get started with today's game and try to find out what really the opening variation I am talking about. So this game was played in 1885 in Baltimore, and this was a match between Steinitz and Sellmann. His opponent is Sellmann, who is playing from the black side. Steinitz started with e4, then e6, d4, d5. This is the French defense position. Okay, so Steinitz played knight to the c3, knight f6. Here there are various options, but Steinitz decided to play the advanced variation of French defense, that is starts with e5 move. Okay, this is a very standard move at that time. Knight of d7 was played by his opponent, and here Steinitz decided to play f4. Well, this move nowadays is quite common, but at that time this was a new move and this was invented by Steinitz because the system which we are going to see. Okay, f4. Instead of this, initially people used to play knight c e2, and after that c5, c3, knight to the c6, and then they used to play f4. Their belief was that you need to keep this d4 pawn on this square, because without this intact like center, we will not be able to get any advantage. But okay, Steinitz had prepared something else. He played f4 in this position. Well, what is the idea? Here black played c5, and now in this position he plays his idea, that is d into c5. Well, what is really happening? He is surrendering everything in the center because now the d pawn is not there, so you can say that the e5 pawn can be a little weakness. But no, there are some different aspects of the position. We will consider one by one. Here in this position black played bishop to the c5 and white developed with knight to the f3, and here black played a6. This is a little bit unnecessary move, I will say. Instead of this move, black should have played something like knight to the c6. As this pawn is not there on d4 square, he should try to undermine this pawn structure by playing f6 on the next move. So let's suppose if white plays bishop to the d3, then f6 is a good possibility and the game will go on. Okay, but okay, here a6 was played and now here white just developed bishop to the d3. So now coming back to the discussion which we were starting here, the thing is that after d into c5, what is really happening is like white wants to control this d4 square with his pieces. Okay, now in this position it is not that apparent like what is really happening, but the thing is that white will be very happy to control the d4 square in the future, and he was able to do that in the game. After knight to the c6, he played queen to the e2. His idea is to play bishop to the e3 and exchange this bishop at some point, and if he gets to exchange that bishop, then maybe he will be able to control the d4 square in coming future. Okay, here in this position his opponent played knight to the b4, which is a little bit inaccurate move, I will say, because it was unnecessary to play this move. Okay, we can understand that black is a little bit afraid of playing castle in this position, because in that case the Greek gift sacrifice which we know might come on the board with bishop into h7, king into h7, and now knight to the g5. Here obviously if we play something like king to the g8, then we have this queen h5 move and black will be checkmated after. Even if we play this move, then we know this thing that we can play queen f7 check, king to the h8, queen h5, king g8, queen h7, king f8, queen h8, king e7, and queen into g7 check and mate. So this is not a good idea from black side. And okay, the best try can be king to the g6, but after this also we know that it is a proper position of Greek gift sacrificed. After queen to the g4, f5, the queen might go to the g3 square, and white will be having quite great advantage in this position. Okay, so here he played knight to the b4 because he doesn't want to go into the Greek keep sacrifice position. He plays knight to the b4. Okay, after this move, white played bishop to the d3, and here he played b5. This b5 move is now obviously he wants to develop the bishop on c8. That's why b5 is played. And after that, black is hoping for like playing queen to the b6, and maybe he is going to long castle, or if this bishop is removed from this square means on the board, then he can castle also in that case. So here William Steinitz thought like he needs to play knight to the d1 with the idea of playing c3, and then he will go for the d4 square. And before he plays like that, his opponent played knight to the d3. Again, this was not that much important move, like necessary move you can say. Knight into d3 shouldn't have been played. Here white has two options. One is queen to the d3 and another is c into d3. Which move will you play? Well, Steinitz was very good in positional understanding. He understood that he must capture with the pawn. Well, why? The thing is that now in coming future you will be getting this open file with for your rook. Another thing is that if the time permits, he might get to play bishop to the e3, or he will dislodge this bishop by playing b4, and then he will get a beautiful square for his knight on d4 square. And once your knight will appear on the d4 square, it will be a very amazing position, because your opponent's bishop on c8 is restricted by his own pawns. So let's see what happens. The b4 is the idea which I have mentioned in this position, but black did not realize Steinitz's idea. If he had realized the idea, then he would have understood that he must play b4 himself to keep this bishop on c5 square. And another idea of b4 is that black is going to play a5 followed by bishop to the a6. In that case, the bishop will be having some active squares in this case. But he did not play that move. He played queen to the b6 in this position. And Steinitz was very quick to play b4. And after b4, the bishop must go back obviously to the e7 square, and now he supports the pawn with a3 move. And here again, if black wants to open up the position, or if he wants to keep some chances in this position, he should have played d4 move. Because if he plays d4 in this position, even if you play queen to the f2, black can play bishop to the b7, and at least you can say that this bishop will be on this open diagonal, and that is something which black will be very happy to do that. But okay, he did not go for that. He played f5 move. The idea of f5 move is like he wants to block everything on the king side, means here in the center also, and he was a little bit afraid of g4, this kind of move. So he played f5 so that everything is stopped on that side of the board. But actually this is a mistake, because it gave white a very clear path to follow on the queen side, because Steinitz was not planning anything on the king side. His opponent assumed like that, that's why he played f5. But Steinitz was going to play on the queen side only, and he started his plan of action with rook to the c1. What he wants to do is like now he wants to control the c file, and you can see after b4 move there are weaknesses on c5, a5 squares, and he will be very happy to put his pieces, especially the knight, on any one of those squares. And another thing is that the knight is also ready to jump on the d4 square. So he played rook to the c1, bishop to the b7 was played, white played bishop to the e3, now dislodging this queen from this square, and now after queen to the d8, the beautiful knight appears on the d4 square, and after knight to the d4, the knight is controlling all the important squares here. c6 and e6 are very important, and the thing is that black really doesn't have any good options to protect the pawn on e6. One is there, that knight f8 which was played in the game, and another option is to play king f7. But if he plays king f7, and now it will be Steinitz's turn to play on the other side of the board with the move g4, because once the position gets opened up after this, after queen into g4, the pawn on e6 will be very weak. Then another thing is that the rook is coming on the g1, further attacking the g7 point, and if time permits, he might get to play f5, and then you can say black's position will be completely exposed. His king will be very exposed. So that's why he played knight to the f8. He wants to keep the position as solid as possible. But here, okay, Steinitz played castle in this position. He wants to just keep his king away from the main battlefield because he is going to play on the queen side in this position. So black played h5. He wants to try to get something on the king side, but that is really not going to happen. And here the journey of the knight starts with knight to the c3. Well, can you imagine where this knight is going? Yeah, the knight is actually heading towards the c5 or a5 squares, which I already mentioned, and the journey starts with c3 square. Then he will be going to the b1 square, then d2 square, then b3, and finally he will be jumping on a5 or c5 squares. Here black played king to the f7, and now continuation of your plan, step by step going towards the good square, that is the knight b1, then g6, knight to the d2, knight d7. Look at this, black is allowing white to carry out his plan in a very smooth way, and that is very good thing for you if you are playing from the white side. So Steinitz happily played knight to the b3 in this position. The rook came on c8 square, and finally the knight arrives on the a5 square. Well, by playing this knight to the a5, what has white achieved? We'll take the stock of the position. First of all, we can see that the bishop on b7 here in this position is being attacked. It is very badly placed. We are further controlling the c6 square, which is also very good for us. Our next task will be to have the complete control of the c file, and that's why we might be capturing on c8 and bringing the rook to the c1 square. Well, first of all, the bishop is attacked, so black played bishop to the a8, and now as I mentioned, we will play rook into c8, queen into c8, and now rook to the c1. And with this, after queen to the b8, with the next move, that is queen to the c2, black is completely in danger position, because now queen c7 is one of the moves which we can play. We have firm control of the c file. The knight on d4 is attacking the weaknesses, that is the e6, as well as the c6 square is also under our control, you can say. So white's all the pieces are playing, except you can say the bishop on e3 is not playing in the game. But okay, that monster bishop, which is going to be monster, will come handy at some point. We'll see when it is. So black played bishop to the d8, try to control this c7 square. But okay, it is not going to be controlled for longer time. White plays knight a c6, and now queen to the b7, and he captures his opponent defender with knight into d8. Here rook into d8, and now finally the queen comes on the c7 square. Now queen is coming on the c7 square means we will be controlling all these important squares, correct? Because means this file will be under our control. And here he played queen to the b8. Well, what happens if he captures the queen? Let's see. If queen into c7, then rook into c7, first of all this knight on d7 is pinned, and if he plays something like king to the e7, and now in this position our magical bishop, which was not doing until anything rather than just supporting the pawn on f4, it will come handy with the move bishop to the f2, and now it is heading towards the h4 square, and it will be very decisive advantage for white, because all the pawns are on the light squares and there are dark square weaknesses in black's camp. And once this bishop on f2 enters those dark squares, black will be in trouble. Okay, he did not play that move. He played queen to the b8 in this square, in this position. And finally, as I mentioned in the previous variation, white played bishop to the f2, bringing the bishop in the game with a decisive effect, because now we will be attacking the d8 rook, and once the d8 rook moves, we will be capturing the knight on d7. Okay, here in this position he played queen to the b6, attacking the knight on d4, because if you play bishop h4, then obviously he will capture the knight on d4. So first of all, Steinitz played a very calm move, knight to the f3. He is also threatening to play knight to the g5 in future if it's needed. Here finally black just exchanged the queens, rook into c7, and now he played king to the e8 in this position. And now in this position Steinitz played knight to the g5. Well, knight to the d4 was also a possibility, but he thought like bishop can also have this open diagonal, so he is keeping like that. And here he played knight to the f8, supporting the pawn on e6, and now bishop finally comes on this diagonal. It is going to capture here, and then he will be capturing the pawn on here, and then he will be winning the exchange. So he played knight to the d7. Here obviously white can capture knight into e6, but Steinitz wanted to play in a steady way. He played bishop to the d6. Now black is completely paralyzed. He cannot move his bishop, he cannot move his Rook also quite, because if he plays rook to the b8, then we will be capturing rook into d7, king into d7, and bishop into b8. So that is not possible. If he moves the knight somewhere, let's suppose he moves the knight here, then it will be a check and mate with this move. So in this hopeless position, actually black just resigned because he is completely tied down. And okay, when I first time saw this game, I was really impressed the way William Steinitz took care of small advantages which he got from the position. First of all, he controlled the d4 square, then he brought his knight to the all the way to the a5 square, and then when the time came right, he even controlled the c file with his queen and the rook, and then last move, which was very important, that the bishop to the f2. This changed everything, and then he won in a very smooth manner. I hope you enjoyed this game. If you enjoyed, do share this game, and if you are not subscribed to my channel till now, do subscribe. We will be meeting in the 6th chapter with something interesting. Till then, thank you for watching the video. Goodbye.